Welcome to the Sports Note for Tuesday, November 14th. And we're about 2 weeks out from the major rivalry games in and wrapping up the regular season in college football. We've got the Apple Cup coming up. We've got the Ohio State Michigan the game coming up. We've actually got the clean old fashioned hate Georgia Tech, which is probably not going to be much of a game. We got Iron Bowl coming up. But one of the more um, fascinating matchups right now is two teams going in completely opposite directions, and that's going to be the Egg Bowl coming up on Thanksgiving night. It's going to be the lone college football game on Thanksgiving night, and that's between Mississippi and Mississippi State. Now, Mississippi currently ranked ninth. We talked about them very briefly, earlier this year with the whole Michael Orr thing. But Mississippi right now, again, ranked ninth, definitely in line for a BCS Bowl, although the SEC championship is set. But Mississippi State fired head coach Zach Arnett on Monday evening, and this was actually 24 hours after Texas A&M had fired Jimbo Fisher. Now, the complete irony here is that Texas A&M beat Mississippi State 51-10 on Saturday. So I can't think of the last time that that's happened where, you had two Power 5 schools play each other and then both coaches ended up getting fired the very next, going into the weekend at that point. The difference here is that Arnett is going to be owed, $4 million a year over the next few years, whereas Jimbo Fisher's getting off with like $77.5 million or something like that, guaranteed from College Station. Now, the problem here is that A&M was actually supposed to kind of start, challenging the Georgias and the Alabamas, and the LSUs for, sneaking their way into the SEC title picture, certainly winning a division here and there, maybe trying to get advantage of an Alabama who, ironically enough, Alabama, even with two losses, is still going to possibly find a way to sneak themselves if they actually catch Georgia on a bad day here on December 2nd in the Georgia Dome. It could end up knocking Georgia further down and getting themselves into the college football playoff. But Mississippi State right now, 4-6 this year, and this is going to end a streak, barring a miracle, of 13 consecutive bowl seasons for them. And the issue with the Arnett situation is that he was put into a position to fail basically immediately, and it's leaving a very bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. And there are people out there that's going to say you are what your record is. So they're 4-6. They won their bowl game last year, and you're going to see why here in just a moment. And Arnett changed the entire system, the offensive play calling scheme, when he took over, and they removed the interim tag. And the reason for this is that December 12th of last year, very, very suddenly and tragically, head coach Mike Leach passed away. And this was something that Mississippi State had just finished up the regular season. They were actually headed to a bowl game. They ended up winning the bowl game against Illinois on January 2 of this year. They put the interim tag on Arnett as having been the defensive coordinator there for the past 3 years under Mike Leach. Now, when Leach passed away, it became seamless, to remove the tag and transition in. But Leach ran a very kind of run and shoot, high-powered spread type offense, whereas Arnett switched the entire system around to more of a pro style set. Now, the Bulldogs were 3-3 up until their starting quarterback got injured, and that was actually something that really seemed to detract the rest of the season. Will Rogers is a senior, and he went down late in the October 7th game with Western Michigan, where they ended up winning that game, and then has really since they have lost three in a row and 4 out of 5 to drop to that 4-6 mark. I'm sorry, my math is a little off. They've lost 3 out of 4 at that particular point, and it was something that has now since sunk Mississippi State to 1-6 in the SEC, and they are tied with Arkansas for second worst, and they're only a game ahead of Vanderbilt, who's winless. If you look at the overall standings in the SEC right now, Mississippi State is only ahead of Arkansas because of the fact that the Bulldogs are 4-6, whereas the Razorbacks are 3-7. If Mississippi State wins out and gets to a bowl, or at least becomes bowl eligible, it's going to be a miracle. Excuse me, because the final 2 games on Mississippi State's slate right now, they actually get Southern Miss as a 14-point underdog on Saturday, and then there's the Egg Bowl against Mississippi. And now Mississippi State did win last year's contest, and does have a pretty lopsided win in the last few years. But this is something now that Rogers dealing with his shoulder or arm injury. Who knows if he's going to be 100% by then? If Rogers is not going to be able to play, and essentially they kind of rule him out for the season, with Mississippi having the opportunity to get to a BCS bowl at this particular point, certainly climb themselves into the top 7 or top 8, kind of tick up a little bit, because somebody between Ohio State and Michigan is going to lose. You're going to have Georgia or Alabama losing the SEC title. If Georgia wins that game, that's going to put Alabama at 3 losses. It's going to drop them completely out of the top 10. So this is something where you could actually end up seeing, when the final rankings come out, that Mississippi gets a better slated BCS bowl seeding than Alabama. And if this was something next year, you could actually see, Mississippi State being one of those top teams that may have actually kind of clinched a bye, and then Alabama's got to kind of go on a road in a qualifier or a wild card game. Some people are actually calling it. But the idea of Arnett being the defensive coordinator, getting ready for a bowl game under Mike Leach. Leach suddenly passes away. You basically take over, you win the bowl game, and then all of a sudden, within days, you're charged with not only taking over the program, but also leading the recruitment trail. And it has certainly been culture shock. It's been chaos with the program, not where you're getting all kinds of off the field stuff, but it certainly has not translated anywhere as smooth as people assumed it would be. And the fact that anyone would even assume that, with as successful as Mike Leach has been, really most of the places that he's gone, between Texas Tech, certainly he actually had Mississippi State in the right direction. But this is also something that you can put part of this on him, for the way that their offense has essentially nosedived. Mississippi State ranks 108th out of 133 Division 1A teams, and they're only averaging 21.4 a game, and 48 of those came in their season opener against Southeast Louisiana, who's a 1AA team. And the idea that also their passing attack with Rogers is even worse. I want to say they're around 110, 112, somewhere in there. Rogers threw for 3,713 yards, 34 touchdowns, and 6 picks last year. But this year, he's got a 46.2 quarterback rating, and the 2 teams that he played against that were ranked at the time were Alabama and LSU. He combined to throw for only 210 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, and was sacked 8 times. In fact, the 487 yards he put up against Western Michigan in the game that he got knocked out um, with the arm injury, it's the only time this year that he threw for over 250 yards. With the fact that the 2008 Egg Bowl, Mississippi pitched a 45-0 shutout. Um, I don't think it's going to be that bad this year, but I think Mississippi's going to be going to look to make a statement to improve. It may not even be a situation where Mississippi takes their foot off the gas late with how big they're probably going to end up leading this game. Um, and I don't think it's a scenario where Mississippi State is going to have the talent, especially with the uncertainty regarding Will Rogers at quarterback. Um, but it's something that Mississippi State is going to fall victim here for Mississippi keeping their foot on the gas to try to improve how it looks in the eyes of the voters going into the bowl selection process. They would love to be able to get that BCS bid and end up finishing the season ranked above Alabama with their 3 losses. But for Fisher to get that big of a payout at Texas A&M, and now Arnett's going to end up getting a pretty decent payout, it leads me to think that there's more things at play here at Mississippi State than we really thought, because they got a new athletic director, and it was kind of a rushed decision. I feel. I don't think they really stopped and sat back and thought about this. This is leaving a far worse taste in my mouth, and it's almost like a vinegar aftertaste, because it's not going to go away for a while. Rich Rodriguez didn't get this kind of treatment in Michigan. You didn't actually have this with Luke Fickell at Ohio State once Urban Meyer moved on, with controversy. And I'm not saying, what happened in Mississippi State was controversial, but it's unnatural circumstances. Urban Meyer stepped down because of, health and everything, with also there, some controversy alluded to that. We saw what happened with the whole Michigan coaching carousel, Rich Rodriguez, Brady Hoke, and all of that before, and now the whole thing with Jim Harbaugh. Is he going to be here? We know he's not going to be coaching against Ohio State in 2 weeks, but is he going to be at the program next year? He's going to move on to the NFL. He's going to come back. Is it something where a lot of this may kind of get washed away if Michigan, even with an interim coach, beats Ohio State in 2 weeks? That kind of remains to be seen. That's something we'll talk about on the Wise Guys next week for the Ohio State Michigan preview. But it's very, very troubling times right now within the Mississippi State program, and this is not something that is going to improve the program whatsoever, because now this is going to be, even though it's for unnatural circumstances, this is going to be the 3rd head coach that you've got at that program in 11 months. Because again, Leach passed away on December 12th. We're on November 14th. It's 2 days shy of 11. It's 2 days past 11 months that you went from Leach to Arnett, and now you're going to have an interim coach in there. And who's to say that we don't potentially see Mississippi State finish up their season and immediately go out and start looking for somebody else if they don't pull the interim tag off of, who's taking over for Arnett. So let me know what you guys think. What was a little bit more surprising, the fact that Fisher has Texas A&M still with 8 wins, and then gets axed with all those years left on his deal, or the Arnett thing, that Mississippi State did not really kind of shoved him out in the woods, essentially did not let this thing have time to mature. Mike and I will be with you guys on Friday night this week for the Wise Guys. We may actually have a guest, and I will see you guys probably later on this weekend, if not my usual spot Monday, Tuesday of next week. Take care.